ఓకే స్టార్ట్ అండి చంద్రశేఖర్ గారు.
షూర్ సార్, షూర్. అందరికీ నమస్కారం. A hearty welcome to our today's speaker, Sri N. Ramchandra Garu, and I hereby welcome all the audience who are here present today on our webinar. As you all know, the topic for today is bigoted seculars, turning blind eye to Hindus' plight. It's an excellent topic, wonderful topic. Each of us always wanted to discuss something about this issue, but then we never had a proper time and audience and proper resource person for discussion. I think today we are very lucky to have our speaker. In fact, it's going to be a very interesting topic, and a topic which is very close to everyone's heart. Let us participate in this. And before starting any of our meetings, it is customary for us to introduce our organization. So to do that, I actually request our Pragna Bharati Telangana State President, Sri Shirish Dhopeshkarji. I request him to introduce our organization, Pragna Bharati. Shirishji. Sir, your voice, we're not able to hear you. Please unmute yourself. Shirishji,
Unmute yourself.
Please unmute yourself.
Okay.
Namaskar and welcome to Sri Ramchandra ji and all the participants of today's program. On behalf of Pragna Bharati, I am very happy that we are here to listen to one of the intelligentsia within our parivar, Sri Ramchandra ji, and I am sure we are looking forward and we will be satisfied with what he has. Just to introduce briefly about Pragna Bharati, most of us know it already, but we are a forum of thinkers, nationalist thinkers, and we aim to foster unity among the various other forums which work towards the same ideals. Founded about 29 years ago with the foresight of visionaries like Sri Ram Madhavji, who was previously the General Secretary of Pragna Bharati and currently in the RSS national team. Sri Tripurneni Hanuman Chaudhary ji, who was IT advisor to government of AP, and he was the chairman and continues to be the chairman of Pragna Bharati. Sri B.S. Sharma, who has been in the pharmaceutical profession since many years, and two others who were also involved at the time, but later on they are no more with us. Sri Vakati Panduram Rangarao Garu and Sri Harihar Sharma Garu. We are also proud that many people who are associated with us have become very prominent in this center. One of them is you know already, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman ji, who was once the General Secretary of Pragna Bharati. And the aim of propagating nationalist ideas is through publications and through national debates and to exchange of thought. And we organize the workshops and seminars, conferences towards that. We also invite and organize speeches by eminent speakers and from different fields, from the fields which are very important from our national point of view, like heritage, culture, dharma, polity, and of course current issues as well. Outcome of the drafted seminars and other programs are made and then circulated. We bring out a magazine every month in English. Due to the COVID, for a year it has lagged behind, but we are sure to bring it again for our discerning readers. As I said earlier, we have done some continuous work in this area, and the respective fields also. So one of them is conferring Pradnya Puraskar on the eminent persons in our society, and we are active in the various social forums like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram also, and now very soon we will be starting a series of programs and putting it on YouTube. I do hope our today's topic and today's speaker would enlighten us on the topic which has been agitating our mind since many decades, and it has been termed so appropriately like as the bigoted seculars. We look forward to it, and over to you, Sri Ramchandra Rao.
Thank you, Sureshji. Now we have our speaker for today's webinar, Sri N. Ramchandra Garu, here with us. Well, in fact, he doesn't need any introduction. We all know him, but as it's our duty and responsibility to introduce on this dais, I request now our Vice President of Pradnya Bharati Telangana, Srimati Vijaya Bharati Garu, to do the introduction part.
ధన్యవాదాలండి. నమస్కారం అండి సార్. రామచంద్ర సార్ నమస్తే. ఎన్ రామచంద్రరావు గారు మనందరికీ చంద్రశేఖర్ గారు చెప్పినట్టుగా సుపరిచితులు. న్యాయవాద వృత్తిలో అయితే నాకు మా గురువు గారు, వీరిని పరిచయం చేయడం అంటే నిజంగా ఇది నా అదృష్టంగా భావిస్తున్నాను నేను. శ్రీ రామచంద్రరావు గారు సీనియర్ అడ్వకేట్ ఫీల్డ్లో వీరి పేరు తెలియని వారు ఉండరంటే అతిశయోక్తి కానే కాదు. ఎల్ఎల్బి పట్టభద్రులుగా ఉన్నటువంటి వీరు పొలిటికల్ సైన్స్ నుంచి ఎంఏ చేశారు. చిన్నతనం నుంచి కూడా నాయకత్వ లక్షణాలు కలిగినటువంటి శ్రీ రామచంద్రరావు గారు ప్రథమంగా సంఘ కార్యకర్త వీరు. ఆ తర్వాత ఏబీవీపీ కార్యకర్తగా ఎదిగి ఈరోజు రాజకీయాల్లో స్థిరపడ్డారు. ప్రస్తుతం వీరు నేషనల్ ఎగ్జిక్యూటివ్ మెంబర్ భారతీయ జనతా పార్టీ అమిత్ షా గారి టీంలో ఉన్నారు. అదేవిధంగా బార్ కౌన్సిల్ ఆఫ్ ఇండియా మెంబరు, ప్రెస్ కౌన్సిల్ ఆఫ్ ఇండియా మెంబర్గా ఉన్నారు. ఇవి మాత్రమే కాకుండా మెంబర్ అకాడమిక్ నల్సార్ యూనివర్సిటీలో ఉన్నారు. గతంలో ఎమ్మెల్సీగా పనిచేసినటువంటి శ్రీ రామచంద్రరావు గారు వీరు విద్యార్థి దశ నుంచి కూడా నాయకత్వ లక్షణాలు కలిగినటువంటి వ్యక్తి. అందుకోసమే వీరు మొట్టమొదటిగా యువమోర్చా, భారతీయ జనతా యువమోర్చా ఫస్ట్ స్టేట్ సెక్రటరీగా పనిచేశారు. స్టేట్ కన్స్యూమర్ సెల్ జాయింట్ కన్వీనర్ గా, స్టేట్ బీజేపీ లీగల్ సెల్ కన్వీనర్ గా, స్టేట్ క్రిమినల్ కోర్ట్ బార్ అసోసియేషన్ గా, సెక్రటరీ క్రిమినల్ కోర్ట్ బార్ అసోసియేషన్ గా, అదేవిధంగా ప్రెసిడెంట్ క్రిమినల్ కోర్ట్స్ బార్ అసోసియేషన్ గా. ఇవి మాత్రమే కాకుండా కల్చరల్ అండ్ యూత్ అసోసియేషన్స్ అనేకంలో వీరికి సభ్యత్వం కలిగి ఉన్నారు, బాధ్యత కూడా కలిగి ఉన్నారు. వివిధ దేశాలు పర్యటించి వివిధ దేశాల్లో అనేక ఇష్యూస్ మీద వీరు, ముఖ్యంగా టెర్రరిజం మీద అనేక పర్యాయాలు వీరు ఒక పేపర్ సబ్మిట్ చేయడం, వారి వాణి వినిపించడం జరిగింది. మన శ్రీ రామచంద్రరావు గారు లీగల్ కార్నర్ అనే పేరుతోటి ఆంధ్రజ్యోతి వాళ్ళు నిర్వహించే కాలాంశంలో ఆ పేపర్లో ప్రతి సండే కూడా వారి యొక్క ఆర్టికల్స్ వస్తుంటాయి. అట్లాగే అనేక లా జర్నల్స్ లో, జస్ట్ లైక్ ఆంధ్ర లీగల్ డైజెస్ట్, ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ లీగల్ జర్నల్, ఇలాంటి వాటిలో అనేక వ్యాసాలు రచిస్తూ అనేక రకాలుగా వీరు మార్గదర్శనం చేస్తూ ఉన్నారు. ఈరోజు మన యొక్క కార్యక్రమానికి వీరు ముఖ్య వక్తగా రావడం మనందరికీ కూడా అదృష్టం. నమస్కారం అండి, మీకు స్వాగతం. రామచంద్ర సార్ గారు మీకు స్వాగతం అండి.
ధన్యవాదాలు విజయభారతి గారు. థ్యాంక్స్ ఫర్ ద డీటెయిల్డ్ ఇంట్రొడక్షన్. Now, friends, it's time for us all to listen to our speaker, Sri Ramchandra Garu. The topic, as I mentioned already, it's bigoted seculars turning blind eye to Hindus' plight. Now, Ramchandra Garu, I request you to start your talk, sir. Over to you.
Yeah. అందరికీ నమస్కారం అండి. మీ యొక్క అనుమతితోని నేను ఇంగ్లీష్లో ఐ విల్ ప్రొసీడ్ విత్ మై టాక్. గెట్ కంఫర్టబుల్, more comfortable in my expressions in that language. కాబట్టి అందరికీ మరోసారి నమస్కరిస్తూ, చంద్రశేఖర్ గారికి, శిరీష్ గారికి, విజయభారతి గారికి, అందరికీ ఒక జూమ్ పేరులో వచ్చినటువంటి అందరికీ కూడా పేరు పేరు నమస్కరిస్తూ, we all know that today and ever since India became independent, the word secular and the principles of secularism has always been under discussion. Though the word secularism was added after the 42nd Amendment during the emergency time, the secular word was added. But Nehru, he always wanted and always preferred that India is a secular and India should be a secular country. Now, when we talk of secularism, the Oxford meaning of secularism is state disassociating with religion. That's what the dictionary meaning of the secularism. And in Indian context, there are several confusions, several interpretations, and even the courts have gone in interpreting what is secularism in the Indian scenario. But before we come to those issues, let me first speak about two major issues. One is the influence of the so-called secularism, the principle of secularism on Indian society, and of course even the media, which is actually propagating the cause of so-called secularism, we can call it pseudo-secularism, the influence of these things on Indian media and the Indian society. So for that, we must go into further 1917, the Russian Revolution, and subsequently the Industrial Revolution, and then the Second World War. All these incidents in the world, they have influenced the society to a large extent, both economically, socially, and politically. These incidents in the entire world, which caused several changes in the mindset of the people also. We all know that during 1970s to mid-90, during this 80-85 period, the impact of these incidents, the Second World War and then other industrial revolutions, economic recession, or they made the English education. And those people who are having an English medium education, their mindset was changed to certain thinking, mainly to the left thinking. And that was the reason why that this English medium in those days, those who are getting their education in the English medium schools and the colleges, they had a particular bent of mind towards the left leanings. And that was the reason that why the Indian institutions like media, academics, and all these were infiltrated by this type of thinking people. If you go to the media, the majority of the left-thinking people were there. They infiltrated this institution. Then academic institutions, like in teaching side also, majority of these type of thinkers, they entered the core area of academics because they are the people we create the future generation for the country. That's how these people entered in these institutions, especially media and the universities. That is the reason why we see in the Indian universities, the present conflicts are going on between the left and the non-left forces in their thinking or in their approach to several issues. So this background we must first see. And then subsequently, the Indian society, which was a silent spectator to the large-scale Hindu genocide which happened in Kashmir. That period during 1980s to 1990, the Kashmiri Hindu Pandits, when they were driven out from their home state, they were killed, they were butchered, they were raped, and they were forced to live as refugees in their own country. The entire Indian media, the entire Indian society was almost a silent spectator on this. Some other places like organizations like RSS, Mission Parishad, those time Johnson and then Bharatiya Janata Party, they were in fact reacting to it, they were speaking on it. But by and large, the entire Indian Hindu society was silent on this genocide. And I think it's the first time that in India, this type of incident has happened against the Hindu community where Hindus in their own country became refugees. But still Indian society did not react. Think 100 crores in those days, maybe 90 crores or 80 crores population. Small numbers involving in genocide, driving away the people, majority of religion. What was the reaction? Why this happened? It is because of the influence of these so-called seculars on various institutions that made this to happen. That we must understand. Unfortunately, in our country, we still have doubt on several issues. See, for example, the recent enactment and amendment of CAA, Citizenship Amendment Act, we are unable to drive the point to the people that this is CAA amendment is nothing new. This is a a brainchild of one agreement between Nehru and Liaquat, where it was decided to protect those religious minorities who are staying back there in respective countries after the division of Pakistan and in India, after the division of this country. Now, this is something which is required world over. Any country which is divided, it is a duty of the state government or the central government or the government, and that may be in that particular region, to protect the citizens. So that was the idea, that the minorities in India will be protected and the minorities in Pakistan will be protected. Now let us say, what is the status of the minorities in Pakistan, and what is the status of minorities in India? Indian minorities have become president of this country. They have become the captains of cricket team. They have become vice chancellors of the universities. They have become the important officers of the military. They have become police officers. They have become politicians. They have become ministers. But what was the situation in Pakistan? One law minister who was a minority, he was driven out from his own country. He had to again come back to India and take shelter. Law minister, Dalit law minister. And today we must remember those minorities who stayed back in Pakistan and those who are still there in Pakistan, majority of them are from Dalit background. And they are being persecuted by the Pakistani government, Pakistani people, and Pakistanis as such. But today, if they want to come out, where should they go? And this particular small issue, that they were all earlier Indians, they want to come back to our own home place. Why then the Indian media, the Indian intelligence is opposing this particular amendment? The only amendment which was made in this CAA was the period of stay from 5 years to 12 years. So it was an existing act. The Congress party wanted CAA to be implemented properly. Congress party wanted refugees to be treated properly and they be given citizenship. Manmohan Singh said in Rajya Sabha. But then why? Why the Shahin Bagh happened? Why is that the Indian media did not bring the facts to the people of this country that CAA is a necessary thing now? It will not affect any religion. So unfortunately, this is a classic example where the principles of secularism fail. We definitely call it a bigot seculars. This type of approach by the so-called intelligentsia, by the so-called secular, I think that this is a dangerous situation for the country. There are two issues in this. In Manohar Joshi versus state of Maharashtra, where in the elections prediction, with regard to the Hindutva, what is Hindutva? Whether Hindutva is a religious or a very secular word, the Supreme Court said Hindutva, the use of Hindutva cannot be a unsecular and it's secular. So therefore, Hindutva, the using of his word Hindutva or the Hindu ideas cannot be unsecular. And even Supreme Court which said, and even in the SR Bommai case, in the Supreme Court said that secularism means only to separate religion from the state. Now here in our Indian society, the secularism has to be defined in several ways. Now Pritish Nandi, he said that we can't call Indian secularism as secularism. We can only at the most call it as religious tolerance or religious tolerism. There cannot be any secularism in India. Then coming to Naslima Tasneem, he clearly stated that religious tolerance is the secularism, Indian secularism is nothing but pseudo-secularism. Anti-Hindu and pro-Muslims attitude is known as secularism. That's what said by Taslima Nasreen. And Wall Street Journal, one Salman Thume, Sadanand Thume, he said that Indian secularism is nothing but a fraud and a failure. This has led to rise of Islamic terrorism, and people like Zakir Naik in this secular background. So Zakir Naik fled the country, and then today he is seen as secular. The majority of the Indian politicians, when he is he's being chased by our Indian investigative agencies, people are there in our country to protect him, political parties. So what sort of secularism we need in our country? Or whether secularism is needed? Secularism is something we have to separate the state powers from the individual religious power. And then Supreme Court also said in Shabanu's case that uniform civil code was necessary. A Hindu woman enjoys certain privileges or certain rights in her marital laws. Why not Muslim women? Why Muslim woman doesn't get the same right which a Hindu woman gets? So this is what the question arises between before Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said nothing doing. All women, all rights should be given equally to the citizens of this country. And then when Shabanu's case was decided, Rajiv Gandhi, in his endeavor to please the Muslim community, rejecting the Supreme Court's proposal to have uniform civil code, he went ahead with bringing the Muslim Women Protection Act, wherein the Muslim women will have maintenance period only for the Iddat period and not subsequently. And then came talaq, triple talaq issue. Now the Indian Parliament enacting the triple talaq and the triple talaq bill now coming into act made a penal offense for that particular triple talaq, made a law that you cannot have this triple talaq marriages, you cannot make you divorce your woman by saying triple talaq and then before a Qazi and following some procedures, then divorce her, give her to her fate. Now when triple talaq was passed, entire Indian women, they were happy with it. So therefore, this secularism doesn't mean an interference with other religion. It was not interference with other religion. One must remember, Government of India, the Indian Parliament did not interfere with one's religion. In fact, it gave a particular religious people the equal right of that particular woman, which is being enjoyed by other religions of this country. If you come to Christianity also, I still remember in Indian Divorce Act is there, where the Christian women get divorce. And Christian women, earlier to NDA government's amendment to the Indian Divorce Act, there was only one ground of divorce, and that was only adultery. And adulterer must be made a party to the petition, therefore they will get the divorce only on that ground. But during Vajpayee's period, this particular enactment was amended and it was brought to the same relief as that of Hindu law. and this adultery is the sole ground for divorce, it was removed. There was some opposition from Christian groups, but ultimately the parliament passed it, and still today we have that particular right. And today the Indian women, Hindu women, Christian women, and the Muslim women enjoy the same marital powers as required. And this is what real secularism means. Now, you have several issues like that. Uniform civil code, because being a lawyer, I would like to say that uniform civil code has been a demand. Uniform civil code was, that is the only enactment that can be brought to show that India is a secular country. Because secularism means all equal before the law. No religion discrimination. Even all religions are equal before the law. So in that case, now the question arises, why there is discrimination between one religion to another religion, and therefore Indian government in the Indian Parliament had rightly, Narendra Modi's government has rightly enacted the triple talaq. Now I'm sure that triple talaq enactment is something first step forward to the uniform civil code. It has paved way to implementation of uniform civil code in this country. So therefore, these are the certain enactments where you can see some variations, discriminations. Now, the secularism has to be seen in two different manners also. So Ram Janmabhoomi, when the issue was there, when Advaniji's Rath Yatra was there, the entire country, they had a discussion, what is secularism? The first time the Indian society came forward to discuss secularism versus pseudo-secularism. What was secularism and what was pseudo-secularism? Now we must understand this, because I don't go to that issue and then Supreme Court judgment, all those things that are all very fresh in our memories, what has happened. But the question was that if you go to foreign countries, Atal Bihari Vajpayee once said he wanted to visit certain sites, international historical sites in Afghanistan. When he saw there, he saw that the tombs of Muhammad Ghori, Ghazali, all these people, they were not properly maintained. And they were left to their fate. But the same issue tombs, the invaders who came to our country, how they are protected. And invaders who invaded our religious places and converted into mosques, like that of Babri Masjid, and where there are no prayers, even Shariat also, for a particular period, if you don't make any, offer any prayers, the place is not fit for namaz. Then, in spite of that particular structure being discarded by the religion, just wanted it back on a sole reason that it is the birthplace of Rama, and why there was a human cry by our own Hindus of our country in the name of secularism. This we have to understand. Now, what I found why Indian society and intelligentsia is so much allergic to the growth of Hindu forces and Hindu power. Now they see RSS, BJP or anything as a Hindu party, Hindu nationalism party. The Indian society, when you compare to other Western societies, something different which we have. Ours is a very vast history, very rich history for us, and our religion is one of the oldest religions in the world. And we were subjected to invasions by right from Huns, right from Mughals, then Britishers, all these people came. Now these people introduced certain way of life in our country, which has diluted the basic Hindu life in our country. But in spite of that, I always say that in spite of the foreign invasions, right, including the Western countries like England, Portuguese, France, all these people, they came to India, they ruled certain part of this country also. In spite of that, in spite of Mughals, today from Assam to Ahmedabad and Kashmir to Kanyakumari, Indian culture is intact. Indian culture could not be destroyed. These invasions have made the rulers to rule our country for some time, but the large number of the people, their religion, their culture could not be destroyed. That is the greatness of this country, and that has to be protected. But in the name of secularism, today, our entire culture, the entire religion, and the India's vast history is being jeopardized. You can just see that it is a fact that Mughals invaded India. It is a fact that they converted people to their religion. It is a fact that Shivaji fought with them. It is a fact. But these things, if you tell in history books, you feel it communal. And you don't teach this history to the students. You only teach that particular history to the students, which is convenient to these so-called seculars. And NCERT and other areas where the syllabi is fixed, you send the intelligentsia who are having the left leanings, and they have taught us the history, which is not a real history to be frank. And they gave us a history which was a wrong history, a Western historians to distort the real Indian history. But when we speak of real history, today we are called as communals. But there are two issues, important issues are here. Now, the Indian education system has been invaded, or I can say infiltrated by these left elements. A majority of the premier institutions, they still now, they are in the hands of the leftists. Why there is a call of Tukude in JNU? Why there is a call of call for celebrating the condolence, conducting condolence meeting for the Afzal Guru in Hyderabad University? Why there is a call for Kashmir's liberation in Jadavpur University, central universities? So these central universities, it was an idea of Nehru where he gave placements for majority of the communist parties, communist thinkers. So now they still have the control over that. They give admissions only to those, that type of thinking people. They give employment only to the leftist background people. So therefore, making these institutions, and from there when you produce a student, you will have that particular mindset. Like Amartya Sen also, he speaks a lot of other things, but when it comes to the Indian society, he speaks the India, anti-India and anti-Hindu thoughts can be seen in his writings or in his speeches and all. So these things we are interested in, why it is happening so? Why they are silent to the Hindu bashing in Kashmir? Why they are silent to justice to the Hindu migrants from Pakistan and Bangladesh? Why they are silent when temples are being destroyed? Why they are silent when the temples are being taken, controlled by the state government? You have a Waqf, hundreds of Waqf properties are there. Government fails to interfere there. But when it comes to Indian temples, Hindu temples, thousands of acres in Telangana, I can say, that today are being sold by government, they are being acquired by the government for their purposes, for their other purposes. So therefore, is it a secularism? No, real meaning of secularism, what is secularism, or what is what, that we have to know, define. By making the word secularism, by adding it into our constitution, what does it mean? Whether ours is a Western secular model or whether it is a Indian secular model. So because there is no example, there is no definition for Indian secularism. But I think I agree with Pritish Nandi that India can never be a secular country. At the most, we will call it as a religious only. And Hinduism is the only tolerant religion in the entire world. We have given shelter to Jews. We have given shelter to Zoroastrians, Parsis. We have given shelter to many historically. They assimilated with us. They live as Indians here. There is no problem for the Hindu society as such. You need not add the word by way of amendment in constitution, secular. Indians, by nature, they are secular. By nature, they are tolerant, I can say. But calling them again, giving them secular, non-secular, why this issue now they are bringing it up is there are two international designs for it. One is the religious conversions, the growth of Christianity and the growth of Islam, both internationally. Their religious activities are being spread to the entire world. And India having 130 crores population, definitely their aim, their design is to convert India. They want to connect, therefore the influence of the Western press, therefore influence of the Western media, Western institutions are there more on Indian so-called intellectuals. So therefore they speak, any person, if you become a Hindu and he speaks anti-Hindu, he becomes a secular. And any person, if he speaks pro-Hindu, he becomes a communal. That's very unfair and unfortunate in our country. Now, with the growth of these missionaries, when missionaries are flooding their money here, it has been stopped. That is stopped by the Modi's government, and the foreign contributions regulatory authority is there that has been now very much vigilant. NGOs are not getting foreign funding like earlier days, so therefore their activities have come down now. But still they are derouting it to some other means, and they are spending a lot of money for religious conversions in this country. It is a matter of concern for the entire Indians, this religious conversion. Then the rise of Islamic activities, right from Kerala to Kashmir. You have seen that religion activities of Islam, including Zakir Naik, I would say, that how they are getting funds, who are funding them. So therefore, this is an international design. I was told by one recent bureaucrat that there is one foundation in the US, Ford Foundation. It spends a lot of money, crores of rupees are given to certain NGOs to disrupt India. And at this juncture, I would also say that Rajiv Malhotra's book, Breaking India, if you just go through the book, you can see that how Naxalites, how these people, they try to break our country. But secularism word, I feel that present day is nothing, a word which has been coined, which is being implemented to break India. It doesn't unite India. Therefore, the right title has been given bigoted secularism. So this we have to be very much careful that the real institutions which control the society tomorrow, which has a lot of inflow from those institutions, and they are education institutions. They are being under control of these things. We have, unfortunately, because of the growth of the corporate education, the Christian missionary educations have now come down. But still, they are finding other routes to spend the money for religious conversions. Hospitals, now corporate also taken up. The Christian missionary hospitals are now not that popular as earlier it was. Schools, Christian schools and Christian colleges are not that particular popular now because of the entry of Nadia. So these things we have to see that what is the reason that today when Narendra Modi ji has come, that why this anti-Hindu bashing is there? Why secular leftist Congress party, all these parties, they always speak of anti-Hindu voice. And why this is only vote bank politics? You can say this is one of the reasons for these political leaders to be anti-Hindu or call them as secular is for one political reason, is that vote bank politics. So in West Bengal, we are seeing today Hindu as a vote bank when it's becoming strong. Mamata Banerjee suddenly takes U-turn and speaks of pro-Hindu voice. She is speaking of giving some concessions to Bathwa community there. Like that, in Assam also it happened. The Congress is slowly changing its voice. So wherever now the majority Hindus, we are living in such a situation that Hindus feel that they are a second-class religion in their own country. India is the largest Hindu country in the world, and Nepal was our only Hindu kingdom, and we all know how China captured it through Red Army, and today that Hindu kingdom has become a communist country, becoming a headache for our own country because of the Chinese intervention there. So to protect India, the only way is to protect Hinduism. And world over, if you protect Hinduism, India will protect it. And I can say that to call a Hindu a religion or a communal will be wrong, because Hindus were always religiously tolerant. Hindus were always ready to embrace and invite any people to their houses. So therefore, by Hindu, but naturally, they are secular. If you go by the definition of the Oxford Dictionary, we always, when our kings were there, we always detached the person religion to the, that's what's called dharma, Raja dharma. That's what is, when when king is there, for him, all his subjects are one to him. People of his kingdom were equal before king. That is what we say now. So therefore, the Indian secularism is in danger now. It is the word secularism is putting India into danger. That we have to see. My only endeavor is to see that the secular term, which is being used in Indian context, is a dangerous term that we have to understand. So therefore, I think that today Indian media, Indian education, slowly it has to come out of touches. And why this particular India anti-Hindu bashing is there not only in India. Recent CAA, it has made the Western European Parliament to pass a resolution. There were people from foreign political parties of Indian origin. Seema Malhotra of Labour Party in UK, she tried to bring in the CAA subject, showing it as if Muslims are being attacked, Muslims are being denied their rights. Similarly, in the US also, in the US Parliament also, they try to, their lobbying is there. So there are anti-India lobby. They don't want India to grow. But one must remember, under the leadership of Narendra Modi, today India has become one of the most powerful nations in the world. And with the word secularism, they will try to bring down this. India has been secular, will remain secular, and India is secular in its approach, in its blood, in its soil. You need not add that word in our parliament, in our constitution. Now the thing is, why Narendra Modi have so many haters outside, and though he is one of the most popular leaders in the world today, yes, there are certain institutions, certain groups, certain political parties which doesn't want India to grow. Because now India is one of the fifth largest, economic power in the world now. Slowly, I think by 2030, we will be number 1 or 2. That's how, even in spite of Corona, our GDP is fast growing, our economic activity has increased. So one way India is going is almost becoming a superpower. It's almost going a world power now. Today, India cannot be ignored. We have now got permanent membership in the Security Council, the UN Security Council. So as India grows, India will be people will try to weaken this country by using the secular coin. And I think the secular coin is dangerous for our country. So those who speak of secularism, they speak nothing but vote bank politics. So the left intelligentsia, the Congress party, and these people have to watch, and slowly I think these institutions are coming out of their grip. Therefore, the word secularism, what we are seeing in the Indian context, today India, I think under Narendra Modi's rule, Hindus feel safe in the entire world, not only in this country. Though Narendra Modi has never occurred a word anywhere against any religion or any other particular society. one particular small example I give and just close my talk. What Mr. Narendra Modi has once said that earlier when people used to come to our country, when foreign dignitaries, we used to give them Taj Mahal, the symbol of Taj Mahal, the statue of Taj Mahal. Now, after Narendra Modi became the Prime Minister, whenever a foreign dignitaries they come to our country, Narendra Modi ji on behalf of country is presenting Bhagavad Gita. And no one can oppose it. Bhagavad Gita is universal teaching. What you don't find in Bhagavad Gita, you can't find anything in the world. That is what Bhagavad Gita taught us. And very bravely, he is not shy of giving Bhagavad Gita to his foreign dignitaries. And in spite of that, he is doing justice to all schemes which he has introduced doesn't belong to only Hindus. Muslims are getting benefit, Christians are getting benefit. So why are you shy? Why are you shy of speaking of Bhagavad Gita? Why are you shy of speaking about your temples, your religion, your religious manners? To be, no, I am secular, I don't want to do this. And I am secular, that's why I wear the cap. I am secular, I go. These are the things, which are only apologetic. They are apologetic. These people are shy of calling themselves Hindus. Let us be proud that we call ourselves Hindus. There are Christian countries, they call them secular, but they impose Christian tax. In European countries, there is a taxation policy for the Christian tax for development of the churches and other things. And we don't have that particular taxes. All are equal before us. So I think the secular mindset in our country is going to destroy our country. Therefore, we are secular by nature. This Western secularism, so-called leftist secularism, has to be contained. And I think today Indian society is facing that. And therefore, today the Hindu Pandits are now going to get justice after Article 370 has been abrogated, after 35A has been removed from the Indian Constitution. Now, this is what is secularism. To continue an illegal act and continue an illegal enactment for so many years, doing injustice to the minorities of Kashmir, is it secularism? Today we are seeing northeast states. The majority of them are Buddhist and Christian states. They are now with BJP. They are with the NDA. This is secularism you can see in this country. So for secularism, you need not go for vote bank politics. There are Catholics in Goa who are voting for BJP. And I am told that this time in Kerala, many Christian associations have voted for BJP, Christian groups have voted for BJP. So what I mean to say is that elections and vote bank politics cannot be the only thinking of our Indian people. We must think more further, and all the political parties should think further also and see that India becomes a world power. And this bigotry secularism, I don't think we can become world power. But I'm sure under the leadership of Narendra Modi, this word secularism will have a different meaning and different connotation. And with that, we are going forward. And I think these are certain issues which I just wanted to tell you the mindset of the Indian intelligentsia, the incidents which led to the failure of this secularism in this country. And with some example, I tried to explain to the participants today. And with these few words, I thank the organizers this opportunity. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ramchandra Garu. Thank you so much for highlighting the issues and trying to explain the difference between Western and the Indian secularism as well. And yes, we all watch what exactly is happening around in our society, and most of the times we feel actually we are helpless, and we as individuals, we can only do little, not really much. And of course, we still have some more prominent people in the audience today. Friends, I actually request if you have any question or anything to share, please raise your hand using the option, more option on your screen. Please raise your hands. And in the meantime, I request Shri L.V. Subramaniam Garu to please share your views on today's topic and discussion, sir. Subramaniam Garu.
Yeah, Namaskaram, Ramchandra Garu, for a very nice absorbing discussion. Of course, you have been very, very brief and to the point. I must appreciate that. In the recent times, Mirannatuga, a lot of issues which have been pushed under the carpet are coming up for mention, they're coming up for attention, and then they're coming up for legislation in this country. That I think is a very, very positive thing. But if you permit me, I would just like to point out that the tragedy in our country has been the loss of historical memory. And there are no institutions even today to remind the common man, forget about the intelligentsia, to remind them about the historical past. As a
Chandrasekhar ji,
It seems he lost his connection. Subramanian garu, looks like he has got a problem with his network.
Yeah.
All right, he should be trying to reconnect, and I'm sure he'll come back. In the
Yeah, please,
meantime,
wait,
I request
Sarachar.
DS
Wait.
Okay,
Sarachar, wait.
okay. So yeah, sure.
Unmute చేసుకోండి sir. Unmute చేసుకోండి.
Please unmute yourself.
Yeah,
sir.
yeah. The tragedy is that we have not made institutions responsible for continuously refreshing the national mind about our historical happenings. So whatever mistakes have happened, let us say around 1946, 1947, up to 1952, the first general elections, we are still paying a price for those mistakes. I'm given to understand that even a gigantic personality like Dr. B.R. Ambedkar has committed some unfortunate errors in translating some of our Sanskrit works. The words that he picked up and translated them, they gave a different connotation to international audience. Our Shastris, our Mudaliyars, our Iyyars, and various other scholars, they were all sitting pretty in their own Sanskrit institutions, their centers of learning. But it is Dr. Ambedkar whose writings, they cross the borders, and on the basis of which there are several people who have picked up their thoughts. So should we do something about it now? Should we look at it now? Is a question which I seek Sri Ramchandra Rao's response to it. We are allowing the historical mistakes to continue, and we have defied these individuals. Dr. Ambedkar is now almost like the 11th avatar of Mahavishnu, so nobody can touch him. A person like Arun Shauri, who has written something about him, is today kept in the corner. He is no more relevant to the Indian dialogue, as it were. So how do we tackle these errors which have happened in the past? Our national institutions are in a state of dormancy. Our elected bodies are busy with everyday elections. Our courts are busy interpreting the Constitution in the way that they like. Therefore, successive Supreme Court judgments have contradicted each other. There is nobody who can bring any method of any madness in that interpretation, and anybody who criticizes that can be imprisoned. So you see the way in which we have kept all our institutions. There is nobody who can play a proactive role. For everything we want Sri Narendra Modi to do everything. Narendra Modi is not a Superman. he is an individual. He also has to look at the number of MPs who are with him. He has to also see whether internationally he is popular. So the national dialogue, which has to go unabatedly, is not happening because we are again depending upon the political system to deliver justice to the Hindus. Is this the right kind of a model? Is the question I'm asking our speaker to kindly enlighten. Thank you. I've taken more time. Kindly pardon me. Thank you.
We'll one by one, two questions we can take and directly we can answer.
Yeah, you can answer him, sir. Then we'll go for next.
Okay, right. Subramanian, yes, what you said was right, and I totally agree with you. But as far as this 11th avatar, as you said, definitely it is a very sensitive and very what do you call? It will be a volatile situation if something adverse comment comes from any quarter of the society. Recently, we have seen that Bhim Diksha, one of the educational institutions, we have got commissionerate, and he is very knows, an IPS officer and very knows when pledge was taken by students that we don't believe in Hinduism, we don't believe Rama, they are not our gods, this and that. And in fact, I raised this question in council also. I spoke on this issue in the council also, with a failed attack on without naming the person. Definitely, I think he is connected with the vote bank politics again. Unfortunately, our Indian political system is based on demographically. When the results are based on demographic mapping. Therefore, these issues, they were social issues. They have to be dealt sociologically. We cannot ignore the large section of the people. At the same time, as you said, the historical truth has to be told to them. What is historical truth? There were Dalits, there were tribals who fought for our country's freedom. They fought along with the kings. There were stories, there really there are histories there. We are not telling the history of people. We are misinterpreting the history. We are misinterpreting the history also. Exactly what I would like to say is that the real history, the historical facts, and the discussion will unfortunately, read about conflict, but we don't go to constitutional debate. The constitutional debate has to be covered, and then what particular Indian has come. And America is debating over this constitutional assembly. And what were the discussions, what were the opinion of the various people on political structure, and how it has to be implemented to our thoughts. I think that is also important to know. And I agree with you that we are failing somewhere, that it is our responsibility, the intelligence responsibility also there. But we don't have a proper channel also to tell to the coming generation that this is what the real history is. This is what has happened, this is what is there. So these things we don't have proper channel, and I totally agree with you. And because there are some sensitive points also that I don't want to totally, I have to be very careful in my wordings. I should not give a negative or a wrong opinion also on that. But I agree with you that we are unable to do what we exactly have to do with regard to our history and the real history, which I think is right time that we should do it now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ramchandra Garu. Now we have DSR Murthy Garu from Guntur. He's running an organization called Think Guntur, which is more or less on the same ideology like our Prajna Bharati. DSR Murthy Garu, please, you want to share something on our dais? మూర్తి గారు మీ వాయిస్ రావడం లేదు.
Yeah, okay. So now, it's a very excellent and enlightening. Nothing to share about. He has covered major topics. Only thing is, we have not tracked anything regarding the Kashmiri Pandits in this regard. That is more to be addressed in the judicial.
Yes, definitely. No, because there are so many issues where the secularism can be questioned, it can be debated. And Hindu Pandits genocide, and they're being driven out from their home places, is one of the first classic example where the secularism has failed, where the secularists have failed to address that particular issue. They are the human being. Unfortunately, not only secularists, even so-called human rights activists, they are not. I only peripherally I touch the subject because secularism is a wide subject. I had to speak only on the political context, so I did not do much into. But today, I'm very happy that after the abrogation of that Article 370 and Jammu and Kashmir getting UT, slowly the Hindu Pandits are returning back. Slowly they are getting confidence. And I think even RSS also has come forward to offer its moral support and other logistic support to those Hindus who wants to go back to their places. And Hindu Pandits, our sympathies are with them, our support is with them. We have been conducting many programs by Pragya Bharati or many other organizations also to support them when they were refugees in other part of the country. We are still with them, sir. That is a issue, large issue, which we have to discuss later. We will definitely have separate topic on that. So many stories are there, so many incidents are there, where what happened to these secularists when this happened. One incident in Hathras, or one incident in somewhere happens, the entire media, comes up. But one minor was raped in Hyderabad by an MIM leader. And no one speaks about it, no one talks about it, no media reports about it. So therefore, as I said, the plight of such Hindu Pandits or Hindus in some areas has to be highlighted by the media also. But unfortunately, media is also under the control of these so-called secularists.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Now, can we request Church Ramakrishna garu? Church Ramakrishna garu line lo unnaru. Niranjan ji ఒకసారి అన్మ్యూట్ చేయండి వారిని. రామకృష్ణ గారు, రామకృష్ణ గారు,
in the meantime, can I ask a question, sir?
Yeah, sure, sir. Please go ahead.
Ramchandra ji, you are from the legal fraternity, and and you have given a very nice and in a short time you have explained the difficulties we have faced. There are certain times, certain words gain such acceptability that it becomes difficult to change the word or remove the word, because then immediately the people, the Marxists who are experts in building up narratives, they use it to accuse that we are against secularism. Is it necessary for us to say we are removing the word secularism? Can we not say it is we don't want bigoted anti-Hindu secularism, we want Bharatiya secularism or true secularism? If we use the word secularism, but we change the context in which it has been used till now by making it continuously saying it as bigoted secularism, anti-Hindu secularism, Western secularism, and then correct it, because we need to correct it with the same word, but by calling it Bharatiya secularism and true secularism, so that the West, the Marxists who are experts in this, we are very docile people. We don't even build up narratives. So we have to somehow play the same game, keeping the narrative and correcting the narrative. What is your view on that, sir?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I said. In fact, the word secularism need not be added to the Indian constitution firstly, because we are by nature, we are seculars in practice. Any Hindu, because the large population is Hindu population. Now, when we speak of Hinduism or Hindutva or Hindu way of life, itself is a secular. We don't discriminate people. That's what I said. We Sarva Dharma Sama Bhava, we believe in it. Vasudhaiva Kutumbam, we believe in it. So, like that, our philosophy, our way of life, our entire scriptures have taught us to be secular by nature. We need not be secular by way of the amendment in the constitution. So whatever it may be, the word secularism which has been added in the constitution, there is a political reason for it. Socialist to secular. So these are the two words which were added during 42nd Amendment. And I would like to ask you whether we are socialists. We are not. Indian political system is not a socialist. Nehru wanted it to be a socialist because Russia was with us then. He wanted to please Russia. But today we are not socialist. At the same time, are we secular? We are not. We are appeasing the minorities. And minorities appeasement is not secularism. Again, we are bringing the state into the political system, into religious arena. So therefore, you are not separating it. When you don't separate it, it can't be secular. Therefore, I think by keeping it or by removing it doesn't matter for Indian society. What is necessary is that our approach to the entire issues should not be based on appeasements. It should be based on logic. It should be based on the national interest, not of anything else. Today, CAA is a national interest. Today, why you are opposing it? Opposing itself is it is against the national interest. That we have to see. So I don't think now by removing the word or by adding the word or keeping the word or continuation, it doesn't matter much. But what I feel is that the word secularism itself has no relevancy in India. We are not seculars. Why should we need not be imposed as secular here? Therefore, what you said was we need not discuss or debate over the removal of wording or keeping the wording in the constitution. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, very well said, sir. Thank you so much. Just in continuation to that a little bit, you have actually mentioned, in fact, compared the Western secularism and Indian secularism. If we look at it in the West, state is totally different from the religion. As we all know, it's their laws are also made in isolation from the religious principles. And the religion is for private sphere only and not for the public life. It's all happening in the West, basically, as at least on the paper. And the concept of secularism, it does not believe in open display of religion except for worshipping places. That is also true, practical. But when it comes to India, whether we say secularism or non-secularism, we actually accommodate multiple religions and its principles in good faith, of course, very well in good faith. And expression of religion is manifested equally with support from the states. That's what is happening in Kerala, if you look at West Bengal and a few other states, even in Telangana for that matter. So, and the environment is actually created in such a way that open display and practice, it's very much possible. And most of the times the common man feels that this religious freedom in the name of secularism is taken for granted and misused or maybe abused, if you may call it. I'm not very sure what is the right word. So sometimes the common man feels that what is that we can do as a common man, and why the judiciary sometimes or most of the times is forgetting that they have this called suo moto. Nothing happens and we just hear the news, and something happens, media does not cover. We hear and we feel bad, that's it. The issue closes and everyone forgets, the elections come, and then back to normal. So what exactly is it? I mean, why this is happening? Why judiciary cannot interfere when it really has to? Please share your opinion on this, sir.
Yeah, Chandrasekhar, I think you're right. The judicial response to the secularism had been there only on certain incidents and certain references before it even it came up. Sumoto, I don't remember any case where the courts have come forward in this case. But I think Sumoto, the courts have definitely reacted when there were incidents of violence against minorities or whatever it may be. Courts have come forward in that way. It is definitely the duty of, because in Keshanand Bharati's case, Supreme Court has very clearly stated that the basic structure of the Constitution cannot be changed and it cannot be interfered with. But now what you said and what we are seeing is that the basic structure of the Constitution is being violated by the states themselves. You speak of secularism and you give all the state funding to the tours to Jerusalem, to tours to some places and Makkah and other places. You give a lot of subsidies to them. Thanks God that it has been removed subsequently by the Supreme Court. And then same way, in Telangana, you can see that Mullahs and other people, they are giving the Christians during their Christmas, they are given free of rice, free of clothes free, everything free. The state fund is not a violation of secular principles. But definitely, I think that the courts are not, even the courts are not sensitive to the secular situations. They are also falling in the trap of those advocates who have got left leanings and such type of arguments which they are bringing before the court. And we have seen recent judgments, and with that we can see what justice can be expected from the people sitting there with such mindset. Sabarimala issue, we have seen many issues, not only Sabarimala, there are so many comments by courts on several counts where it has hurt Hindu sentiments. It has hurt Hindu sentiments. Even courts also go by that, I think, very unfortunate. Courts have to be bold. The courts has to follow the constitutional guidelines. They can't have their own personal thinking. Even judge cannot have personal thinking. Judge has to follow the constitution. And that's what the judges during the Shaban's case or during Talaq, they did so. They did not go by their individual opinions. But unfortunately, today it is not so. As you rightly said, that judicial response to these situations is very, very, I think we can say that there is no judicial response to such situations. Thank you, Chancellor.
True, sir. True, sir. It's only that the concern is only that with such instances where we are supposed to feel that we are all equal, the in practicality, what is happening is we got a strong feeling that some are more than equal. So that is dangerous, and that should not be happening at the single level. That's all.
Exactly. I agree.
Thank you so much, sir.
Chandrasekhar garu,
Now,
Indraji madam.
can we have
Indraji madam? Indraji madam.
Yes, Indra garu.
Namaste, sir.
Yeah.
First, Chandrasekharji's question I can understand, but they follow secularism, Western people, but they have an official religion. Whenever they take oath or promise, even Biden took it on Bible. They have Judeo-Christianity the official religion. Similarly, in the UK also they have an official religion, whereas in India we don't have any official religion. We don't say that, Hindu, at least we don't give a name Hindu to our country. Okay. So that way we are different. This is one way of discrimination for us. Second thing is, let me be a devil's advocate to Ramchandra Rao. He said about Kashmir Pandits, none of the Hindus raised anything, and they did not take up agitations or street agitations or something. That happened in 1990, where at that time the media was not so powerful. I mean, print and maybe some electronic TVs were there, social media was not there. And then the other thing is Kashmiri Pandit issue, Shabano, Ayodhya, they all exposed pseudo-secularism of the secularists. So these were cashed in by the BJP party. And everybody, all the Hindus realized that BJP will do something to the country, mainly Hindus. That's the reason why it came to power. So these were raised and they came to glare. Now what I'm saying is, my question is, socialism and secularism from the 42nd Amendment, we are not removing from the Constitution, and Kashmiris have not been repatriated to their place. And we are right now in the rule of Modi, I think it is the 6th or 7th year, and we are still saying, we are saying that we are victims and we are exposing our victimhood. Why is this so?
No, that's what the last 70 years, ever since our independence, the issue of the secularism, then the Hindu rights, and Hindus being treated as second class in their own country, was a concern. Different, many instances have come up. And as you said, that Kashmiri Hindu Pandit issue also came up, and because the media was not so powerful and not so wide as such, like right now, social media, electronic media, print media. But even the things were known to accept the RSS and the Bharatiya Janata Party, no other organizations came in support of
that's true. That's true.
Hindu genocide. So therefore, definitely, whether it is a political advantage or disadvantage, leaving it alone, we spoke for them, we stood by them, and even today, and that is the reason why we wanted them to go back. We are still appealing them, and there are people who want to stop them. They don't want them to go there now. They want the situation to be status quo. We want it to be anti-status quo, and these people want to have a status quo. So therefore, there is a lot of difference between our approach and other political parties' approach, firstly. Then secondly, Bharatiya Janata Party as a political party, we can't, when we speak of secularism or socialism, all these things are political terminologies. But when we practice as a rulers, I mean, by the government, definitely these things are being taken into consideration. And after Narendra Modi came, this Article 370 was abrogated in the second term. And Ram Janabhoomi issue was a judicial process. And this is the two major victories which has been a long pending demands of Hindus in the country. So therefore, I think one need not, show the love for Hindus only by verbally. By actions, we have shown it. What does the Hindu Rashtra means? It is nothing. Restoring Kashmiri Pandits, their land, their properties, and Ram Janabhoomi issue, and there are so many other issues. Even as I said, the Bhagavad Gita's propagation, or so many temples protections, and then even cow slaughtering issues are becoming day by day definitely a political issue. But our governments are bringing the love jihadi enactments wherever we are there. So these things definitely it is moving a step towards direction of protecting the Hindus, Hindu women, Hindu girls, Hindu society. So I think directly we cannot do it because of the constitutional framework. We have our own limitations, but we are still doing it, and we are successful in many areas. And I'm sure slowly we will be able to reach out in many places, and the atrocities, the discrimination against Hindus in our own country will stop. Definitely, it will stop. And as you said, that we take our we swear by God, not by Hindu gods, only by God. I swear in the name of God, we say. Or I swear in the name of the Constitution if you don't believe in God, if you're an atheist. But God is everything. I mean, we don't say Bhagwan Ram ki kasam kha ke kehta hu ya Bhagavad Gita. And earlier in courts they used to say Bhagavad Gita. No, it is not there. It is only in the name of God. Definitely, all these are facts which we feel that some change will come in future. Definitely, it will come in future. Slowly, we are doing it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, DSR Murthy garu. DSR Murthy garu. I see your hand up. Yeah, again, sir.
Namaste, Andy.
Okay, nimsham, sir. Unmute. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, namaste, sir. Why are we failing to communicate the plight of Hindus on global platforms?
Global side.
Why are we failing to communicate the plight of Hindus on global platforms?
Yes, and definitely we are failing there. There are many reasons for it. One thing is that we don't have proper media support for it. We don't have proper lobbying for it in the international forum. As I said earlier, that when the CAA issue came up, UK Parliament discussed that. I mean, there's a reference in UK Parliament. There's a reference in the European Parliament. There are lobbyists. We don't have such lobbying, no, but slowly we have started. In US and then what do you call UK. Now some of our lobbyists, we have not taken much interest in all these years in maintaining a lobby to raise our voice, Indian voice, basically Indian voice, and Indian voice is Hindu voice. The atrocities on Hindus in Kashmir especially, it was not highlighted. When the Amnesty International visits there, they speak only about the armed forces violence against the civilians. No one pointed out with regard to the Hindu plight there. Their genocide. They are being driven away from their home places. No MNCT International people. And even today, the MNCT International or human rights groups, when they go, they speak only of the atrocities and human rights violation by the police, by the military, and by the armed forces. They don't speak of the systematic attacks by the terrorists, systematic attack by the former Pakistani-inspired jihadis. They don't speak of it. Why don't they speak? Yes, your concern is correct. Internationally, we are not able to lobby. Internationally, we are not getting support. There are two reasons which I said, that they don't want India and Hindus to grow because they are a threat to the international community. That India may grow one of the most powerful nations in the world in future. Because of India growing, Christianity will not develop in India. If India grows internationally, Muslims will not have much place in this country. So therefore, internationally, there are reasons for it. They don't want Hindus' plights to be more to publicize in the international forum. Otherwise, we may gain more international support for us. That is one of the reasons.
I think this is majorly should come from the political side, because there are so many non-government organizations that have been working on behalf of Hindus in various countries.
Right.
Unfortunately, we are not getting-
As you said, globally, we have to mean now after Modi ji has come, India as such, as a victim of terrorists, we are now getting support. The jihadi, the Islamic terrorism. People are with us now. Many countries are with us. Earlier, all these countries before Modi came, all these countries were siding Pakistan. I attended 2-3 meetings in Israel International Conference, where 56 countries participated, and out of them 50 countries supported Pakistan. They said that they are the victims of the terrorism, and they were all anti-India. But now recently, one of my friends attended. He says that all entire country, entire world was with India there. Slowly we are doing it in some areas, like terrorism area. We have succeeded in isolating Pakistan. Like that, slowly we have to do it, and definitely, I think the time is very near that the Hindus plight will also be globalized, and will be getting international support for it.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
rightly said, sir.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving up.
Yeah, as you said rightly, it's the strategic plan when to undermine India. There's no doubt about it. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thanks for the wonderful talk and very good interactive session after that, sir. Thanks for providing a lot of awareness on this issue. Now, I request B.S. Sharma garu to propose vote of thanks for this evening's program. Sharma ji.
నమస్కారం అందరికీ. ప్రజ్ఞా భారత్ తరఫున రామచంద్రరావు గారికి ధన్యవాదాలు చెప్పే ముందు కొన్ని మాటలు చెప్దాం. ఆయన పేరు ఎన్ రామ నుండి భయపడ్డాను, కానీ చాలా అద్భుతంగా A to Z సెక్యులరిజం గురించి వివరించారు. అమర్త్సేన్ నుంచి జాకీర్ నాయక్ వరకు అనేక ఎగ్జాంపుల్స్ తీసుకుంటూ A to Z లో యాంటీ ఇండియా లాబీ ఎలా పనిచేస్తుంది, ఎపీజ్మెంట్ ఎలా పనిచేస్తుంది, భారత్ యొక్క బి అంటే భారత్ యొక్క ఏజ్ ఓల్డ్ కల్చర్ గురించి, సి అంటే చేంజ్ ది డెఫినేషన్ ఆఫ్ సెక్యులరిజం అనే విషయం గురించి, డి అంటే ఢిల్లీ యూనివర్సిటీ గురించి, ఈ అంటే ఎడ్యుకేషన్ సిస్టమ్ లో ఇన్ఫిల్ట్రేషన్ లెఫ్టిస్టుల గురించి, ఎఫ్ అంటే ఫ్రాడ్ ఇన్ ది నేమ్ ఆఫ్ సెక్యులరిజం ఎట్లా జరుగుతుంది అనేది, జి అంటే జెనోసైడ్ కి నో క్రై, నక్సలైట్స్ చనిపోతే పౌర హక్కులు అంటారు, పోలీసులు చనిపోతే ఏం మాట్లాడతారు, ఈ రకమైన ద్వంద్వ విధానం, 2 నాలుకల విధానం గురించి, ఐ అంటే ఇన్వేడర్స్ ఆర్ రెస్పెక్టెడ్, వాళ్ళని పాఠ్య పుస్తకాల్లో పెట్టడం గురించి, జే అంటే జర్నల్స్ నాట్ ఇన్ అవర్ ఫేవర్ అని చెప్పడం, 7 సంవత్సరాల సెంటర్ లో ఉన్న గవర్నమెంట్ ఇట్లా అనొచ్చా అంటే ఆలోచించాలి. మనకు కూడా we should lead in that journals. కే అంటే కాశ్మీరీ హిందూస్ నాట్ నౌ రెఫ్యూజీస్, వారి గురించి చెప్పారు. ఎల్ అంటే లెఫ్టిస్ట్ లయర్స్ అని ఎక్స్పోజ్ చేశారు. ఎం అంటే మీడియాస్ పార్షియాలిటీ గురించి చెప్పారు. అండ్ ఎన్సిఆర్టీ సిలబస్. ఓ అంటే ఆక్స్ఫర్డ్ డిక్షనరీ యొక్క డెఫినేషన్ చెప్పారు. పి అంటే సూడో సెక్యులరిజం గురించి. క్యూ అంటే ఈ క్వశ్చన్ వై దే ఆర్ సైలెంట్ అంటూ వారిని క్వశ్చన్ చేశారు. ఎవరైతే డబుల్ టంగ్ ఉన్నారో వాళ్ళని క్వశ్చన్ చేశారు. ఆర్ అంటే రామజన్మభూమి టైం నుంచి వచ్చిన డిస్కషన్స్ గురించి చెప్పారు. ఎస్ అంటే షార్పాన్ కేసు గురించి చెప్పారు. పి అంటే ట్రిపుల్ తలాక్ గురించి చెప్పారు. యు అంటే యూనిఫామ్ సివిల్ కోడ్ గురించి చెప్పారు. వి అంటే ఓట్ బ్యాంక్ పాలిటిక్స్ గురించి చెప్పారు. డబ్ల్యూ అంటే రాంగ్ హిస్టరీ ఎట్లా నేర్పిస్తున్నారు స్కూల్స్ లో చెప్పారు. ఎక్స్ అంటే జెటియన్స్ ఎట్లా క్రిస్టియనైజ్ చేద్దాం అనుకున్నాను, హి హాస్ ఎక్స్పోజ్డ్ దెమ్. వై అంటే యూత్ షుడ్ బి టాట్ ద ప్రాపర్ హిస్టరీ అని చెప్పారు. జకీర్ జెడ్ ఫైనల్లీ జకీర్ హూ ఫండ్స్ యూ అని అడిగారు. ఇట్లా మొత్తం అంతా సెక్యులరిజం గురించి మనం ఆలోచించాల్సిన విషయాల్ని A to Z వీరు చెప్పారు. వారికి ప్రత్యేకమైన ధన్యవాదాలు చెప్తున్నాం. అలాగే ప్రశ్నలు వేసినటువంటి వారు చాలా ఎక్స్పెక్టేషన్స్ తో వాళ్ళు అడిగారు. ఈ టాపిక్ మీద ఇంట్రెస్ట్ కొద్ది అడిగిన ఎల్వి సుబ్రహ్మణ్యం గారికి ధన్యవాదాలు చెప్తున్నాం. అలాగే మన గరిమెల్ల వారికి, ఇందిరాజీకి, మూర్తి గారికి, మిగిలిన వాళ్ళందరికీ కూడా పేరు పేరున ధన్యవాదాలు. అందరూ చేసింది. దీన్ని మనం చిన్న ఫిల్మ్ గా రికార్డ్ చేసాం కాబట్టి దీన్ని ఎక్కువ మంది చూడడానికి పంపిస్తాం. అలాగే ప్రింట్ చేసి చిన్న పుస్తకం కూడా వేస్తాం. దానికి మన కార్యకర్తలు సహకరిస్తారని ఆశిస్తున్నాను. శాంతి మంత్రంతో ఇంకేమైనా ఉన్నాయా చంద్రశేఖర్ జీ? శాంతి మంత్రం చదివే
మంత్రం చెప్పేసండి, అయిపోతుంది.
సర్వే భవంతు సుఖినః, సర్వే సంతు నిరామయాః, సర్వే భద్రాని పశ్యంతు, మా కశ్చిత్ దుఃఖ భాగ్ భవేత్. ఓం శాంతి శాంతి శాంతి.
ధన్యవాదాలు అందరికీ. ఇంతటితో ఈ కార్యక్రమం
నమస్కారం.
నమస్తే నమస్తే
నమస్కారం.
ఎన్ రామ్ గారు, ఎన్ రామ్ అని పెట్టుకున్నారు. చాలా బాగుంది, మంచి టెక్స్ట్.
అందరికీ ధన్యవాదాలండి. భారత్ మాతాకి జై.
ఇంద్రజీ, దీన్ని కొంచెం టెక్స్ట్ గా చేయండి. మీరు మ్యూట్ లో
సరే.
భారత్ మాతా కీ జై.
ఓకే.
A to Z about secularism and రాయండి.